Hi friends, welcome back to another true crime episode. If you're new here, hi, I'm Faiza, and every week I talk about a true crime story, and if that's something that you're interested in, please do like and subscribe because I'll be giving a new case every single Saturday. So today's case is very disturbing. It's yet another honor killing. It's about this depraved monster that just was so controlling, and he became quite obsessed with his daughters. He was following every single move that they were making. He was stalking them, and then eventually, when push come to shove, he decided to murder them. So this is the heartbreaking case of Amina and Sarah Said. So Yaser Said was an immigrant that migrated from Egypt to the United States, and he moved there with his wife Patricia in the state of Texas. They had 3 children, Amina, Sarah, and their older brother, Islam. Like I said before, Yaser was very strict and controlling. He was tracking their every move, including his wife. Their marriage was very abusive. Yaser was very abusive and controlling. Even within the home, he would watch their every move, and he has created a very unstable household for both Amina and Sarah. They had no privacy, the phones were confiscated, he would drive them to and from school, and bear in mind that they were teenagers at the time and they were more than capable of commuting on their own. However, their father was very domineering, obsessive, controlling, and just a terrible person to be around. They were living in fight and flight. They were absolutely terrified of him, and they only spoke when they were spoken to, and he would induce paranoia by saying things like, I have hacked every device you're using. Every text message that you send, I'll be able to see. Every phone call that you make, I'll be able to overhear. And he was just playing God, basically saying that I'm all seeing, all hearing. And the girls were terrified because, eventually they did believe him and they were manipulated. And I don't blame them one bit. Amina was born in Texas in 1989 and Sarah was born in the same place in 1990. The older brother Islam was born in 1988 and he was a devoted son to his father. So he would also be part of the abuse, and he also believed that his dad was always right. No matter what his dad does or says, he would always be by his side. I forgot to mention, when Yaser married Patricia, she was only 15 years old. And Patricia, the mom, she's a victim herself because she met him when she was very young. She didn't know any better. And he was 30 years old at the time. Like I said, the marriage was abusive. He would belittle his wife. He would insult her. He would make fun of her appearance, her weight, and always talk down on her. And he's just all around a terrible human being. I read somewhere that he was timing his wife while she was out getting groceries, and if she comes late, only by a minute, he would beat her to a pulp, and it's so sad. Yaser made the whole household a chaotic place. No one was safe apart from his son. I don't believe his son was abused based on what I've read. Only the women in the family were. As Amina and Sarah grew older, all they wanted was to live their lives like a normal teenager, They were beginning to notice the opposite sex. They wanted to be, dress accordingly, and they were beginning to discover themselves, and they just wanted to do teenage things, like around this time is a very confusing time in your life, and you just want to make mistakes, you want to try new things. But the problem was their father wouldn't let them. Even when Amina was working at a convenience store, he would be sitting outside her workplace with a camcorder and watch her. And he would say threatening things like she smiled at a customer, she's in trouble now. And once she got home, she was beaten. and it's so sad. So Yaser wanted to marry off his daughters to some far distant relatives from Egypt. However, Amina and Sarah both refused. They were only 15 and 16 at the time. Once Yaser found out that his daughters don't want to live that kind of life, he became livid. He became angry. And he shortly also found out that Amina was dating someone, and he just went. He flew off the handle. He was not having that, and he beat at her so severely to the point she couldn't go back to school for a number of weeks. As time went on, Amina and Sarah were getting beaten on a daily basis. Their father was getting more depraved. He was also an alcoholic, I forgot to mention that. And he would often come home drunk and record them without their consent. He had many home movies. And within those home movies, he's saying very creepy and inappropriate things to his daughters. He's complimenting their body and being very pervy, and it's just so disgusting. Amina and Sarah's phones were confiscated. Their father wouldn't let them go out. And you must be wondering, where was Patricia in all of this? Their mom, based on what I've read, she was allowing the abuse. You know, she was saying things like, do what your father says so it could keep us all out of trouble. Yaser was in control. Whatever he says goes. And this goes against anyone's will within that household. At this point, Amina and Sarah were sick of the abuse. It's been many years that they were completely withdrawn from their friends and family. They were failing at school because they were stressed out, and I don't blame them. But they decided one day, enough is enough, we're gonna run off to our friend's house. So once they did that, they stayed there for several weeks, to the point where their mom showed up and said, I promise you, your dad has forgiven you. Things at home will be different. And the girls believed their mom because she wasn't abusive. She was just allowing the abuse. And they decided to go home. And this is where things get deadly. So the girls ended up going home, and Yaser, their dad, was on his best behavior. He was smiling, he was inviting, and he asked the girls, you know, let's go out and eat so we can talk about our issues and so on. And the girls agreed. So they jumped in the back of the taxi. I forgot to mention, Yaser is a taxi driver. So they jumped in the back of the car and he proceeded to drive. However, the girls were like, can our mom join? You know, can mom join? And he said, no, it's just going to be the three of us. So they were feeling skeptical. They knew something was up. And then before you know it, as he's driving, the road seemed a bit secluded, and he found the perfect time, according to him, to turn himself around, and he shot Sarah 9 times, point blank range. Then after that, Amina freaks out and she gets shot twice. Because she got shot less times compared to her sister, that died instantly, by the way, she called 911. And the operator answered and she said, help me, I am dying, my dad shot me. And then shortly, the line went dead, and Amina and Sarah are both dead. They have both passed away. And what does Yaser do? He just flees. And then he becomes a fugitive for 12 years. He evaded capture for 12 years. So he abandoned the car with both of his daughters in the back. Another taxi driver found the bodies and called police. And then Yaser ended up being on the FBI's most wanted. And he was hiding out in a rural area in Texas with his son and his brother. So on January 1st, 2008 is when he murders his daughters. And then from that day forward, he decided to run, flee, and hide. So in August of 2020, a person has recognized Yaser and decided to tip off the police. The FBI and the police showed up to the apartment. However, nobody was home at the time. So they collected samples. They collected some sunglasses, some cigarette butts, and they tested it in the lab, and it matched Amina and Sarah's DNA. The FBI decided to put surveillance around the apartment, and after a week of surveying, they decided to seek out a search warrant, which was granted, and this is where they found Yaser, his son Islam, and his brother Yasin Abdul Fattah Said. Yaser's son Islam is 32 at the time, and he was arrested for concealing a person of interest. Authorities do speculate that, Yaser was helped by other family members and so on, but they really couldn't catch everybody involved. So the main people were his own son and his brother Hussein. Even though Yaser was charged with capital murder, prosecutors did not seek the death penalty. Yaser is currently held in Dallas County Jail. His trial opened on August 22nd, 2022. So it wasn't that long ago, only a couple of years ago. So let me tell you Yaser's defense, because it's absolutely ridiculous. He is defending himself by saying, "Oh, on the night of the murders, I was driving my daughters, yes. However, I am not the one that shot them." So he said there's a car right beside me, and then someone decided to open fire and they were targeting me. However, they managed to murder my daughters instead, and I decided to flee out of panic. And that was his defense. Apparently, there's a threat following him. That is his defense. There is someone out there that wants me dead and so on, so I had to run for my life. That doesn't make sense. He had 12 years to think of a defense, and this is what he came up with. So the prosecutors were like, "If that's true, why would you leave your daughters dead in the car?" And he said, "I wasn't sure that they were shot. I thought they were shooting at me." After hearing the closing statements and 3 hours of deliberation, Yaser Said was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As of January 2023, he's currently staying in Texas Department of Corrections. Regarding his son, Islam, on January 19th, 2021, Yaser Said pleaded guilty to harboring a fugitive and 1 count of conspiracy to obstruct justice. On April 27th, 2021, he was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for the charges I just mentioned. So, according to Yaser's brother Hussein, he has the exact same charges as Islam. However, his defense was that he wasn't aware for the last decade that Yaser has murdered his daughters. So the prosecution wasn't buying that BS, so they charged him for harboring a fugitive. And they're all sent to different prisons. So Hussein, the brother, is currently staying at the Federal Correction Institution in Bastrop, Texas. So the story of Amina and Sarah is just so heartbreaking. It's really about the heartbreaking example of family structures, abuse, honor killings, and it's really highlighting the need for better protection for those in need. They were vulnerable teenagers, All they did was live their lives. And their father was so controlling, so depraved, so evil, and it is barbaric, to say the least, what has happened to them. Sarah and Amina were only 20 and 18 years old. And if you're wondering about Patricia, their mom, she filed for divorce in 2009, and her whereabouts are unknown. Anyways, thank you so much for being here with me today. I really do appreciate you guys. And do let me know who you would like me to talk about next week. Till then, stay safe, stay hydrated, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.